welcome. We're excited to show you what Semsee can offer and our partnership with Chenango. Obviously, we have John and Jamie here, who you're familiar with, and some of the team from Semsee. They're the experts. They will show you exactly how to make this platform sing and run and be the most efficient quoting process for you. We're excited to show you that. But let's see. People are still filing in a little bit, and all right. Well, with that, Zach, I'm going to hand it off to you. And as questions come in, we're going to wait till the end to ask them. So just if we'll make sure your question gets answered, we just want to make sure we get to everybody at the same time. So, all right, Zach, it's all yours, my friend.
Sounds good. John Mason, I didn't know if you wanted to do a little opener for us.
Sure. Yeah, Zach, I appreciate that. First of all, I want to thank everyone for taking some of your valuable time today. I know in this market, the time is more precious than usual. I am beyond flattered, humbled, and appreciative that almost 100 of our agency partners have taken time out of their busy schedules to join us. We know that what we have here is something that's going to save you a lot of time in your agencies. It's going to help you generate a significant amount of additional revenue. And we've got a way for you to feed your own carriers right along with Chenango's. And then we've got another network of carriers through Semsee markets that you'll have access to. And something that we hadn't advertised yet, but we get asked about all the time is you offer some trucking markets, and that is coming to fruition also as a result of this portal. So the market is a sure sign of what's going on and why this product is necessary and how it can help all of you. We have a few people on the line today from Semsee. We have John Reitz, Jessica Apple, and we just heard from Zach Yerk. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Zach, and let's make this a winner. And we are going to make 2023 and 2024 our best years ever.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, John. I don't think I have anything to do now. You just gave the whole pitch. So
welcome.
Thank you. So as John said, I'm Zach Yerch. I'm the head of revenue here at Semsee. We have Jessica Collins-Apple. She's our director of agency success. And then we have, let's see here. We've got John Reitz. He's, what is your director of marketing, I guess is your title, John? He'll be handling any questions or things like that, right? So what we're going to do here, I want to kick things off. So a little bit of background on Semsee. Our mission, our whole goal is to help agencies basically write more business faster at the end of the day. So where our name comes from is single entry, multiple company interface. That's ours is kind of a play on words on that, right? So that way, when my sales team reaches out to people and asks, have you heard of Semsee? Usually they've heard of the acronym, not Semsee the company, but we just roll with it. What we do is we give you the ability to get bindable quotes, whether through admitted, E&S, specialty markets, multiple lines of business with a single application, right? That's the big deal. We want it to be a single application, bring back bindable quotes from multiple markets, right? So we save you time and help you to make more money at the end of the day. So how does this work, right? With Semsee, what you do is you select the carriers you'd like to quote. We'll run through a demo of this here in a second as well. We do have BOP, GL, work comp, auto, cyber, as well as some E&S markets on there. And you fill out one easy to use application through our system, and then that gets sent directly to the carrier portals, right? And that brings back those live quotes. Majority of the time, it's actually going to provide a premium. Sometimes it's going to be referred to underwriters. Just depends on the piece of business, right? So some fast facts about Semsee. Typically, agents are submitting to around 4 carriers every time they use us. We talk to agencies every day. Typically, when they submit to one carrier, it's going to take 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes, depending on how simple the risk is. With our system, you're going to save at least 40 minutes for every risk you're submitting because you're only doing it once and it's submitting it to all of those carriers based on the work that we've done, right? Now the average premium is around $4,600. I like to say it's anything 25,000 and below is kind of a good spot for us. The smaller, the better, because it is going to be simpler and a lot easier to provide a bindable quote with less underwriting intervention, right? We have thousands of agencies using us, thousands of agents that quote small business through us. And there's a ton of different class codes that you can write. We have a bunch of different features we'll show you. One of them is an appetite checker. So you'll actually be able to see which carriers on the Semsee platform, whether you have them directly, whether you get them through Chenango, either way, which carriers are going to write that specific class code. Now, some features that we're going to introduce you to, if you've seen us in the past, great, but we've also launched a lot of new stuff over the last year. I've only been here about 2 years, and everything on this page is brand new from the start there. So we'll cover those on the demo. I already covered appetite checker a bit. We've got bulk quoting, accord uploads, which, it's pretty self-explanatory. You can drag and drop an accord right into our platform, and it'll start an application for you. Market access, give you access to more carriers. And then we can also help you to cross-sell cyber and then set presets for these agencies, where you can set the standards for your agency on what the coverages you want to have, what the limits are, and everything like that per carrier. Now, quick introductions on a couple of our features, right? So John just mentioned that markets are getting tough, right? So that's why we came out with bulk quote. I saw a couple people sign in from Florida, a couple people from Texas. We know California is a big one. Carriers are just pulling out of some states, right? It's not the best thing, but it's just something that we have to deal with. So you have to find a place to put that business. With Semsee, we can pull all the business that you have with that carrier, requote it with multiple other carriers, and provide you with those quotes back, right? Saves you a ton of time. You already have the solution for your insured before they even reach out to you, and you have the answer to their question. So hopefully you keep them on the books, right? But there's a ton of different reasons. I mean, rates are going up everywhere. If you do buy a book of business, you can also roll that into specific carriers that you use, right? Maybe they've got 25 different carriers that they're using and you only use 5, right? But they pay you a higher commission rate. So falls back into the bucket of Semsee's here to save you time and make you money. Now the Semsee intake form. Jess, I don't know, are you going to show a little bit of the intake form on the demo?
Yeah, we can dive into that too.
All right, perfect. So quick overview of this. It's just a way for you to get the insured's information into Semsee. It's something that agents were asking about for a really long time. And what we did was we built it, right? So they fill out this form. It's going to create a lead within Semsee, and you can turn that lead into an application. All you have to do is choose the carriers and choose the lines of business, and it's going to go from there, right? So you can either embed this on your website. You can add it on your business card. I've seen a lot of agents do that. They add it as a QR code onto their business card. So somebody scans that, and then they're starting an application for you. Or even just send it to a prospect to help collect the info. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jess to walk us through the demo.
All right. Thank you, Zach. Just a quick intro. I'm Jess, the Director of Customer Success here. So I lead a team who helps to onboard and teach agents how to use the platform. A key role for us is going to be collecting feedback. So there's an email out there, chenango@semsee.com. You'll see that a lot. That's a place to go for assistance, feedback, anything you'd like to add or take away from your account. It can all be taken care of, chenango@semsee.com. That's how you reach my team. We're happy to sit down one-on-one with anyone who might need a training. If you guys have new producers that are being added to your agency, throw them our way. We're happy to sit down and teach you how to use the platform. We want to get the most use out of it. We want you guys to get the most use out of it. So if you have a question, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here for you. So kind of segueing off of the intake form, I think that's a good place to start. So this is a sample intake form. We do have the ability to add a logo. You can change the colors that are in here. I'll actually just jump right into this right now. So on the admin tab, if your agency decides to add an intake form, this is going to be where you're going to manage that. So you have the ability to change colors here. Let's say I wanted my accent color to be hot pink. Maybe I wanted to upload a logo here. We can go down. Maybe I want it to be chenango@semsee.com for the email address. That's the public facing email address on this form. I do want to show the name Chenango Demo Agency, and maybe I want my lead notifications to go to jessica@semsee.com, which is my email. So that means that anytime this form is completed, the emails listed under the leads module here will be able to receive a notification. So let's save this right here. Oh, public facing. Let's just say chenango.com. Okay, so we saved, and let's take a look at this intake form. I don't know if the color, hang on one second. Phone number. Certain things that we have to require. All right. There we go. Settings have been saved. Let's refresh, and we'll see that we do have this information in the top right corner here, and we do have our accent color. So you guys can customize this to your own agency. It doesn't have to be Chenango branded. So let's go through, and I want to show you guys what this looks like once you have a lead that comes in. It's really helpful to understand that the leads that come through are captured after this first page. So we'll say Jessica's Florist is my business name. What do? I'm a florist. And when does my policy start? Maybe next week. Once we submit that, it is going to capture the lead. And now from here, anything that your prospect provides is additional context that will make its way into the application. So if they know the date the business started, annual sales, payroll, employee, these are things that you're not going to have to collect from the agent, and they will be in the platform and in the application if your prospect chooses to do so and fill them out. We do take this to the next level, describe the business operations. If they want, they can choose even the line of business if they're aware of what they need. If they're not sure what they need, they can check other, but say they know they need a BOP and a workers' comp. If they continue, it's going to add additional questions that the prospect can then continue to fill out, where those responses will continue to make their way into the application to make your life a little bit easier. So what happens once the lead is submitted? We have a leads module here. So it's going to say Jessica's Florist. This is the primary contact over here. They're interested in BOP and workers' comp. This is the desired effective date. So we can view. From there, we can see the responses. We didn't provide much on this intake form, but from here we can decide if it's a valid lead, if we want to delete it, archive it, or begin the application. If we begin the application, it's just going to transfer it from a lead into a submission. So from there, you'll have to go in and fill out all of the responses that were not collected, but it's just a really good way to capture that lead information. Maybe it's not a great lead, but you still want to follow up with them. You can archive it, revisit at a later date. So in a nutshell.
Jess, real quick, we did have a question come in with that, and I just wanted to make sure that I interrupted you for a second. Is this mostly for standard markets, or does this include E&S lines as far as the intake form goes?
That's a great question. So this is mostly for standard markets, but you do have the ability in Semsee to access our market access team, which can help you get E&S markets as well. So essentially, you can go through the flow of starting an application with the data that's in there. And instead of selecting a BOP or a workers' comp, you could select the E&S tile, and then all of your questions would be directed towards that E&S situation. A question about, does a cord upload work with the intake form? So it's an either or situation. If you're receiving a lead through the intake form, that's how it starts your application. Similarly, if you want to start your application with an Accord upload, you can do so. So it's basically whichever one has more information is how you'll want to start your application.
Yep. And Don, I'm not sure if you were asking this, if you were asking if the insured can upload an Accord or not, but no, they can't from our side. They would just have to send it to you and you would handle the upload. Another thing I wanted to highlight, I know Jess went over this, but that form after that first page does populate real time into Semsee. So it's really cool to see as an agent. You can almost watch that person filling out that form and as they go.
Yeah, so let's add a little
So-
bit of color here. Okay, and let's continue. And then let's refresh here. Okay, so all of the data that I just input here in the form didn't find its way into here. So yeah, it does speak to that real time. Also, I want to highlight that the intake form does basically sit stagnant for 16 hours. So that means that if your prospect leaves the URL and then comes back to revisit, the information that's in the system is not lost, and anything they add to it is captured as well. So it's not one of those where it's going to refresh every time. We know that, you know, you guys are pulled in a lot of different directions, and so are business owners. Okay, any CRM or AMS that the form integrates with. So we'll go into, we do have one integration with Hawksoft. So you can pre-populate your client data if you do have that with Hawksoft. If you don't have Hawksoft, we highly recommend the Accord upload route. So with most AMS, you can export an Accord form, and that's how you can start an application in Semsee here. So I want to go through a couple of different paths on how you get to starting an application. Since we're on the Accord upload one, let's start here. Very simple. Accord 125, 126, 130, 140, and 160 is what is supported. You'll just drag and drop, or you'll upload your PDF. It will take you to the first page of the application, and basically you'll just have to click through each section to verify the data. So we're not going to just take you to the furthest point in the application without letting you first verify that the information is correct. So no duplicate entry, but you will have to click past just to verify for E&O purposes. So Accord upload is a really great way to start if you do have that Accord form. Semsee does have an Accord download feature as well. So this is a really great flow, going in with an Accord upload, selecting your carriers, quoting, selecting an Accord for download, and then at the very end, you'll have a more complete Accord form than what you started with. So you can take that, upload that back into your AMS, and it's kind of a full circle for you. Another way to start an application here is going to be our appetite checker. So we do have an appetite checker for BOP right now. We are going to be expanding this to workers' comp and GL in the future. But essentially, if you're not sure what markets might be interested in your risk, you'll just go in here, say you're quoting a florist. You'll put in florist. We'll suggest a NAICS code for you. Next, maybe you're in New York. We only want to see appetite for New York. And it's going to populate all of the carriers in their specific class codes. So if a carrier does not have a class code populated, it's probably safe to say it's not an appetite. One rule of thumb is that you always need a valid carrier class code in order to start quoting in the platform. So we do ask you to classify your business upfront with a NAICS code. When you do that, it will help to narrow down the class code selection when you are choosing your carriers. So just so you know, once you get to carrier selection, you will have to select additional class codes. So we'll jump into an application, but I first want to take you guys on a little bit of a tour of the navigation here. The dashboard is a snapshot of your last 6 submissions. So this is an agency view. That means that if your agency works collaboratively, it's a really great environment for that. One agent can start an application, another one can pick it up and complete it. Down here is the leads module, as you can see. And then we do have a resource center in your My Markets, which kind of outlines what you have access to. So jumping into access, just want to mention that Chenango is covering the fee for the baseline access. So what that means is they're giving you access to their markets and then also the market access carriers. So this is at no cost to you. No setup is required. So once you are active in the system, some of you have been activated. I'm sure there are others who are, just hearing about this for the first time. You will need to email chenango@semsee.com in order to get set up, but we'll take care of everything on the back end for you. You won't have to put in any information, and all of your markets will be ready for quoting. If you do want to upgrade the account, we are offering a discounted price of $50 per month. That means that you can add your own direct appointments into the system, And essentially, instead of referring to our team or the Chenango team, you can self-service with your own username and password, comparing against all of these additional markets. So definitely a benefit to that. And to upgrade your account, you'll just email chenango@semsee.com. We're happy to do that. I do want to highlight here while we're on the settings tab that we do have your information for your agency. A lot of you were set up without an address and website and all of that information. So please just double check that once you get into your account. You can edit here, and anything else that you need to make changes to, we can add. So one thing to consider is we do have a compare quote download, and it will pull this agency information in the header so that when you present it to a prospect, they know who to reach out to for next steps. So obviously you don't want to be pulling a document that's saying null, null, null on every field. So that's just something, if you're going to leverage that quote download, then definitely want to make sure your information is buttoned up front. All right, so if you do choose to upgrade your account, you're going to have an admin tab. This is where you're going to add your users and your additional carriers. If you're not on an upgraded account and you're just on the base level, anytime you need to add or remove a user, email chenango@semsee.com, and we're happy to do that for you. Adding a carrier is very straightforward here. You'll just choose them from the drop down, put in their code, and then a nickname for them. You can add as many codes as you have. We know that some agents have a service center code versus various different ones. So we want you to differentiate that if you have it. Also, if you're upgraded, you will have this intake form management system, which you guys saw at the very beginning. This is where you can upload all of your information for that intake form. Preset section, this is important to note that you can default coverages, limits, and deductibles. We're finding that there are a lot of agencies that are newer to commercial business, or even producers that are newer to commercial business. So what this helps to do is kind of guardrail the account for those producers and for your agency. So if you know that you're not going to bind business that's below a certain amount, why don't you go in here and first preset it so that every application is started the same way. One thing that we can do, if one user wants to go in and preset the whole account, you guys can let us know. Just email chenango@semsee.com, and we will go ahead and copy that across the agency. So that's something that we can make sure it's consistent across all users. Last thing I'll note before we jump into a submission is the submission section. The dashboard, like I said, is a snapshot of the last 6. But once you start to get quoting a lot in Semsee, they're going to start to pile up. It's a great place to come and type in the risk name and narrow down your search to identify your quotes quickly. Okay, with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start an application. We're going to quote a barber shop today. This is an existing record because we've quoted them before in Semsee. So we will save your client data for up to 7 years at this point in the cloud. So since I'm selecting an existing record, all of this information is pre-populating. We do have an integration with Google and Google Maps. So that means that if you're quoting for the first time, we'll populate the Google response. You can verify that that's the location, and it will pre-fill all of this information in if it's on Google. Next, this is where we're going to put in our class code our NAICS code here. So it's pre-selected with barbershops, but for the first time you would go in and start putting in keywords for what the insured does. So as I mentioned, this is going to help to narrow down the class code selection when you do get to the carrier selection, because you will have to choose those carrier specific class codes. If you're quoting an LRO, this is where you would select that at this time here. Okay, next is our address section. So what we do on our system is we copy the mailing and the primary physical to match each other. If this is not the case, if your primary physical is different from your mailing, this is where you would make those edits. If you're quoting with multiple locations, this is where you will add additional locations, and a sweet spot in Semsee is 7 or less locations. Once you start to get 8 or more, we're kind of inching into the no longer small to mid-size risks. Semsee has a really good sweet spot for small to mid-size businesses, and Main Street businesses fit really well in the platform. So anything you think about, a florist, barbershop, anything you'd see on a Main Street, these are the bread and butter of what will fit very easily in Semsee. Not to say there aren't other class codes that fit, but these are going to be the quickest to get through for you. So we'll just go through my primary and my mailing do match. So I'll go ahead and continue. The contact for the insured goes here. You'll add as many contacts as needed. And now we're in our policy selection. So the question on, can you use the intake form to get to the surplus markets? Yes, you can start your application from that intake form. You would just select here the tile that you'd like to in order, whatever line of business you're quoting. I will say BOP, workers' comp, and GL are going to be our top class or our top lines of business at the moment. Semsee started with BOP and workers' comp, so that's really our bread and butter. This is where we're going to have the most carriers, the most class codes. GL is on the up and up. We do have a pretty good offering at this point. And commercial auto is an emerging market as well.
Jess, can I jump in right there?
Yeah.
That is an opportunity for everybody on this call. I think it's pretty common knowledge that Allstate is non-renewing every commercial auto policy that they have in New York, New Jersey, Florida, California, and Louisiana. There are thousands and thousands of businesses getting non-renewed on commercial auto, and the features that we offer allow you to either data enter or preferably upload an Accord, and you can get commercial auto quotes now without emailing back and forth. This is really a very efficient way to do business. Go ahead, Jessica.
Thanks, John. Yes, absolutely. And also we do have some trucking markets that are on this commercial auto tab as well. So if we just click into it, I'll show you very quickly. We are working on splitting this up so that we will have a trucking only tile in the future. So just something to consider. And also this is an appetite check on the left-hand side here. So this will mean that they don't offer trucking in New York. For this case, Travelers and Guard do. So you would be able to quote with them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go through a BOP and a workers' comp. You'll see that once we select those lines of business, we have these Accord forms that populate here. So this is the download that I'm referring to. Best practice is if you would like to download an Accord form to select it at this point, because the Accord form feature is one of those where you get exactly what you put in out of it. So that means that if you don't select it up front, we don't ask you an Accord question, you don't have that response on the back end. So just best practice, if you know you want it, select it at this point. Some other various tiles that you're going to see, these are all related to our market access program. Cyber, I will say, is a really good line of business to cross-sell. The question set is very minimal, and it is a subset of generally any line of business that you're already quoting. So that means that you're not adding any additional time, any additional questions. And it's really a good way to, offer additional coverages, not only for, more money in your pocket, but cyber attacks are on the up and up. And it's something that, more of our agents are starting to sell now. So just even having that conversation, might open up their eyes. I know that some agencies are having their insured sign a cyber acknowledgement that they have said no to the cyber policy and they understand the risk. So that's something that if you're not already doing that, this is a good opportunity.
And with bulk quoting, they can quote their entire book of business, and it's great E&O protection.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
We did have a couple questions. Lorena, you said this in the chat, but you also said never mind. But the question was, how do you save an app or an incomplete app? The beauty of this is it's saving as soon as you type anything in, right? Your computer could catch fire and you go, buy a new one, log back into Semsee, and your app's still going to be there wherever you left off. So you're good to go there. There's no need to hit save or anything like that. Each answer you type in is actively saved as you're typing it in. The other question was from Angela, where it was, if you sign up for the $50 a month, you can have any company that you have a direct appointment with. Yes and no, right? So we do have a list of carriers that we are connected with, which is right here. We do also have a list of our direct appointments as well. Most likely, we're going to have the majority of your carriers on there. We can send that out after this call though as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to note, like if I jumped out right now, I could get right back into where I was, and I would need to select my carriers here. So yeah, as Zach mentioned, no save button. We know that you guys are pulled in a lot of different directions. It's kind of the logic on the intake form as well, that they don't have to save. We're going to capture what's entered because that's the name of the game. No duplicate entry. That's what we're striving for. Great questions. Thank you guys. Keep them coming for sure. So I'm going to go through now. I'm going to choose a couple of carriers and I'm going to highlight some of the tips and tricks on selecting carriers for quoting. So as I mentioned, the NAICS code helps to narrow down the class code selection. If there is a one-to-one mapping, like for instance, Chubb, CNA, this seems like a really good fit in the Semsee platform, Liberty Mutual, we will populate that class code. So if we know with confidence that that's the one that you're going for, and it maps 100% to the NAICS code, then we will pre-populate that. If there's a situation where there's more than one, we're not going to make that decision for you. We're going to ask the agent to classify their business. So Nationwide, for example, has 3 options. We'll have you click in and just verify which one you want. Going through workers' comp is a little bit different. So as you guys know, when you're quoting a workers' comp policy, you're going to have to provide payroll information. There could be numerous payroll codes per business. So we don't ask you to classify it right up front. You're going to add those payroll codes once we get into the actual application. So I'll go ahead and just select a couple so I can show you an example. Okay, so here we are in the first page of the dynamic form. So what we've done is we've consolidated all of the carriers, class codes, lines of business. We're going to ask you each question one time, and then we're going to send the responses to those carrier portals. So we put in a phone number this came from Google. It's pre-populated here. We have some information that's pre-populating. I will note that once you get into, I'm going to actually pull this out just a little bit. Once you get into your application, you're going to see the show only field. Required and unanswered are going to be checked. So this means that we are only going to show you the required questions that we don't have an answer to. So if you have presets defaulted, they will answer those questions for you, and you won't have to see them until the very end when you're ready to submit and review. If you would prefer to see every optional question and you don't want to go through fast flow, you want to go through, fine tooth comb, certainly uncheck them and you can see the whole thing. This is really just an efficiency tool to, push your application through the fastest way possible, but we still do ask you to review your answers, give you the ability to edit them. You'll see every response all at once at the very end. Okay, so we're going to go through, we'll answer some of these questions. I will highlight that the form allows you to move freely. So if you're passing mandatory fields, it's going to call them to your attention, but you can continue anyways. So once we have a check mark next to all of our sections, that's when we know we're ready to submit the application. This exclamation here is a call to action throughout. I will mention that if you do decide to upgrade your account and add your own direct appointments, there's an additional element that we need your username and password. So that means, logically, where would we place that record? It would be just kind of floating around if we didn't have your username and password. So if you ever have an invalid username and password, that's the call to action as well. It's just streamlined across the platform. I will highlight, let's get some of these filters off. I will highlight on the left of each question is going to be a flag. So if you have questions that you're not sure about and you would like to send them to your insured per se, you can go into this flagged questions section. It's going to consolidate all of the questions from all of your different sections. And I will mention we're on the version 1 of this feature. So right now you can copy questions. This will copy to your clipboard. And this is, you can actually paste into the chat, which I'm going to paste into the chat. You can paste into an email for your insured to answer. The next iteration of this is send flag questions to the insured. So that means that they would be able to answer these questions with a deep link and their responses would make their way back into the application. So as I mentioned, we're on the phase 1 of this and the next phase is to come. Let's hop into location coverage here. So if we were quoting multiple locations, those multiple addresses would be listed. Logically, each building is going to have a different coverage. Each payroll might have a different amount of employees. So this is your space to designate those coverages and those responses. As I mentioned, you'll be going through and putting in payroll codes. So fairly straightforward. Say 8810 clerical not otherwise classified. Agencies or the carriers have these labeled a lot of different ways, but it's standardized across. You guys know what the payroll codes are, and they're across the board here. Payroll amount, we'll go ahead and enter that in. Oh, employees. Number of full-time employees, not 100,000. Okay, so we'll just get some responses filled in here just so that you can see what this looks like here. So it'll summarize your payroll codes. So if you have multiple payroll codes, this is a great way to understand what you've already entered, what the values are, and make sure that everything's correct prior to moving on.
Hey, Jess, let me ask a quick question for you. Do you need loss runs or deck pages to get a quote?
You do not. So at the end here, we're going to ask for qualifying questions. So we're going to ask you if you know about any losses. This is your opportunity to put them in, and those will make it over to the carrier, but you don't need any of that from us in order to start your quote. I will say that if you are, I'm sure Chenango is the same way, if you're working with our market access team, it's best practice just to send over everything that you have on the account. If you have their deck pages, accord forms, any supplementals, this will help eliminate kind of the back and forth, and our underwriters will be able to take all of that information and apply it to the quote. I'm sure that's the same practice for Chenango and just wholesale in general.
Perfect. Thank you, Jess.
Sure. Okay. Awesome. So I don't want to bore you going through every single answer here. It's fairly straightforward. We ask a question, you provide the answer. Once you have check marks across the board, that's when you're going to submit your application. So I want to go into what that review page is going to look like before you submit, because the review page looks the same both before and after the submission. It's found up here in application answers after the fact, but we're just going to pretend that we were at the end of our submission here. So this is going to outline every single question. So you're going to notice that this is a lot longer than probably everything that you've provided, because we have some things defaulted on the back end based on what the carriers have given us, what your presets may be. So this is your opportunity to go through and verify each thing. In the status of, prior to your submission, you're going to have an edit button here. So that will kick you back into the business profile section where you can update exactly what you need to. Same thing, every section will have that edit button to kick you right back in. A lot of our agencies are actually using this download here as a way to protect against E&O. So what you can do, you can download this and you can actually put this in your policy documents for your insured. You can have them sign off on every single question here, or just, at the bottom, not every question, but sign off on all of the data being correct. And that essentially protects you from any discrepancy in data. So this is a really, really nice feature here that we just added a few weeks ago. So don't forget about that download of these answers. Also, if you're, just best practice to download and upload this into your AMS so that you know how exactly you're quoting. It's best just to have all of the data for your insureds. Okay, so here we are at the quote result. I want to go through a couple of different results, what they mean, what next steps are. So logically, if you are on the base level of the Chenango access, that means that you're not using your own username and password at all. So you're kind of at the end of the road here once you submit your quote. Either Chenango needs to finalize your quote and bind it for you, or market access needs to finalize your quote and bind it for you, depending on which code you're leveraging. The order of operations is if Chenango has a code, that's the code that's used. Market access will never overstep into overwriting their codes. The design for market access is just to bring forth additional markets that aren't already being leveraged.
And Jessica, I'm going to interject here that we have within the past week made applications to 4 of the other major carriers who are on this portal, not currently represented by Chenango, and we have had a very positive reception from them, even in the market that we're in, because we have the Semsee portal. We feel that we're probably going to be given a green light, hopefully with all of them, but certainly I think the majority. And to add to that, we are also exploring, we are licensed for ENS in a few states. We have a separate entity called Chenango Excess and Surplus. And Jamie is actually talking with a couple of our carriers who have ENS divisions at this point, and we hope to be able to make those products available through Chenango later this year. But that we're a little further behind in that process than we are with the other admitted markets.
Great, that's awesome context. Just to kind of add on top of that, the way that Semsee operates is that if you guys are leveraging our, we'll say for CNA, you're leveraging our code, should Chenango get a CNA code later down the road, we will BOR all of that business to your CNA code. We're just here to provide additional access. We're not here to step on any toes. So where those additional markets do pop up, we'll move business over there accordingly.
And just, I want to one more thing with the market access companies. There's a number of agencies who have always sent applications to us to do the data entry. Well, that would be, an agent would be shooting himself in the foot at this point to do that, because Chenango is not able, if we quote the business for the agency in the Semsee system in-house, the market access companies will not be available. They're just blocked from our usernames. The only way to access those is through data entering it or uploading it in your office yourself.
Fair. So you're saying, like, if they have their own appointment for something that's in the platform, to not select that for quoting.
Well, right, because I can't quote for their carriers or your carriers. So they need to, it's important that the agents take full advantage of this and do the entry and the upload in their own office, as opposed to sending it to Chenango's team to do the data entry for them. The purpose of this is to get Chenango out of the data entry and pen pal business, chasing agents for missing information. And quite frankly, I have instructed our new business underwriters that as applications come in, business coming in from the Semsee portal takes top priority over business that we've got to chase for information.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we're supposed to be an efficiency tool for, independent agents, but also wholesalers too. So that helps you streamline your process to just direct traffic through our portal. And kind of identify that as a first step. So yeah, love that. Transitioning here to just go through a couple of quotes results and kind of what they mean. So you're going to see via Chenango Brokers whenever a Chenango code is used. You're going to see via Semsee whenever a market access code is used. So this right here, request a review, this will pop out a message box where you can add notes about the insured. And then you can pass it along to the Chenango team. This will be included in the email notification when they get tagged in to take a look at the submission. So once you request review, this is what the notification will look like. So it'll give you a timestamp on when you clicked that button. And then also, as I mentioned, it sends that notification to the Chenango team. That's how they know that you submitted in Semsee and that you want to start discussing that submission and moving forward. We do have documents, quote documents available for participating carriers. This is a very new initiative, but in general, we will not populate documents on a non-bindable quote. We've seen agents try to go and sell non-bindable quote docs to other people, so we've just kind of halted that. Mostly you'll see download docs for cyber carriers. Those are the really easy and straightforward ones right now. And if you are using your own direct appointment, that's where you're also going to see the download docs. If you do have a bindable quote. Semsee does block the market upon submission if the carrier typically does so. So that means that if another agency has already quoted that risk in their system, they're not going to allow for agencies to compete on that same piece of business. Agents tend to strip business or coverages away in order to get a more favorable price. So logically, that's the reason for the block. Declinations, these will definitely come through. They're coming through more frequently with these hardening markets. You're always going to have a message box in the top right corner just letting you know why. Sometimes it's nice and buttoned up where you have one line. Sometimes they have a paragraph of all of the reasons that they don't want your risk. So that's really helpful feedback to understand, as you're trying to place, especially if you have, a niche market where you understand, you need to know which direction to go in. You're not going to knock on the same door twice. Okay, down here is going to be the Accord forms. So if you select an Accord form for download, it's going to show up in red. If you didn't select it up front, it's going to populate in white. This means that you can still click and pop. This will generate the Accord form at this point, but it's important to note that if you didn't select it up front, you might not have all of those responses in there. So I'll show you what the Accord download looks like. It's very clean. We get a lot of good feedback from our agents that it being editable is a really easy way to update and add information down the road. So a lot of our agents, like to leverage this. Some of them even come here just for an actual blank Accord form to start fresh with. I did mention the compare quotes feature, so I'll go ahead and bring 2 quotes side by side. This is a staged environment, so we do have some missing fields here, and they don't actually submit to the carriers. But this is what it will look like when you do compare your quotes. It's going to have all of these coverages side by side, and you can actually download to Excel or PDF. If you choose PDF, you can customize the fields that are included here, and I'll show you what this looks like. This is what I was referring to on the information from your agency. So if you have null, 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 that's what it's going to populate in this top left corner. It's going to bring your risk information to the right-hand side. And this is not Semsee branded, so you can actually take this to your insured and show that you did your due diligence in shopping the policy. Okay, I will also mention that help.semsee.com is a great place. Let's go ahead and just jump over to it right now. So this is our help center, our knowledge base. You can submit a ticket from here, or you can email chenango@semsee.com. Each time you email chenango@semsee.com, it will create a ticket. So there's no need to do both, but if you're already in this area and it's easier to just submit your ticket from here, you can do so. I will direct you to the video resources. This is a really great place to say, after today's call, we will send out the recording, but it will be an hour long. These are really short, digestible videos, less than 2 minutes or around the 2-minute mark, to help you understand exactly how to use these different features. Okay.
One thing to highlight, Jess, is actually the intake form, right? So John, as you mentioned, it's a lot about data entry, right? The agent needs to do it to be able to submit to all their carriers. The insured can help with that, right? That intake form piece basically fills Semsee for you. And at the end of the day, you're choosing carriers. Cost you $25 a month. So the question is just, how much is your time worth, right? Nobody wants to do the data entry piece, and you certainly don't want to do it over and over again. And that's where that intake form comes into play.
Yeah, I think this is a great segue into just kind of, the pricing in general. So it is $50 for the additional access with your own markets. And then we are selling the intake form for $50 to our regular retail agents, but it's $25 for Chenango. So for $75 a month, you can have the full shebang. All you have to do is email chenango@semsee.com. When you mention the webinar, we will tack on a 30-day free trial for you. So all good stuff. Just to highlight again, chenango.semsee.com is how you get logged in. And then email chenango@semsee.com. I said it a million times, I'll keep saying it, just so that it's drilled in your brains. So why would you email Chenango@Semsee? Update account information, add users, trouble logging in, feedback, questions, anything. I will highlight, and we'll send this out as well, but this is the contact for my team. I do have an additional team member, but she's getting up and running right now, so she'll be added shortly. But this is our contact number. So extension 1 is customer success. I will say we do have individual phone numbers here, but we are, pretty backed up day to day. This is the best way to get in touch with someone immediately, as well as emailing Chenango@Semsee. This is our market access team. They're extension 3 if you need to reach them. And then these are the different emails depending on, what you're looking for, servicing or a general inquiry. You'll notice that Yael is our trucking girl. She's our trucking queen. So if you're quoting trucking, you'll be reaching out, or you'll be communicating with her. Sam is ahead of the department, so he kind of, makes sure everything's up and running. And then Andrew or Deanne, depending on, what you're quoting, is who you're going to get. So this is just kind of an intro of the team so that you guys can get familiar and, put a name with a face, because we will be interacting for sure with each and every one of you. So that really concludes our presentation today. Thank you guys for giving us great questions. We will have this recording and we'll send it out to everyone. But if you are not already on the platform, again, and you'd like to get set up baseline access, or you want to go ahead and upgrade the account, just shoot us an email. We're going to need the preliminary information from your agency, your name, the name of your admin user, your address is helpful. You can put your address in at a later date if you don't want to provide it, but really just anything to get the account up and running. So also, we're here for you. Reach out if you have any questions or concerns. John or Jamie, anything else to add before we wrap up?
I don't. I just, again, want to thank everyone for their business, for your patience. I actually bought Chenango 24 years ago this month. We have evolved in a number of ways, but I have to tell you, this is probably the most revolutionary tool that we have ever delivered to our agency partners. It's going to give you the opportunity to win in this hard market. I want to thank you for your business. I want to encourage you to test this out, utilize this. Remember, Semsee is where you go for all things technologically related to the rater. If you still have, insurance type questions, and the professionals at Chenango Brokers are actually very happy to help you. Don't forget, we have the chat feature if you just have a quick question, but it's Semsee for all things IT related, Chenango for insurance related, as long as it's things that you're placing through Chenango.
All right, awesome.
Any other questions, or are we good?
I think we have every question answered.
Great.
But definitely reach out to us if any more come up. And thank you all for joining, and we hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.